how long you've been doing this?
Started last year, like right at the end of last year. About 21 episodes recorded. Yeah, it's just kind of like
What kind of things have you talked about in your sessions?
Religion, growth, importance of self, and just like valuing yourself.
Mm-hmm. Is it more for you or more for the viewer?
Kind of both.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like I talk to people who know something about something I want to learn about, and then just kind of like it's like just get there's an opportunity to kind of like pick your brain a little bit about something that's interesting, and then also I am kind of using this as an opportunity to talk about like the education system and something that I feel like is not spoken about a lot in that like you are forced to think about you are forced to kind of learn this way, and like I said, just like you either learn that way and successful, or it's like I don't know, like, I just kind of like to make a point, but then two also like learn at the same time.
Right.
So it's kind of one and the same, like two in one, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sounds more like a self-interest thing initially.
Yeah, I mean, like, have you ever seen like the Joe Rogan thing, where it's like, so it's like that kind of thing where it's just like, he's just kind of, it's a bit like that, but then it's also a bit more like, I do feel like there's a bit more ego behind mine. And I think that's kind of something I'm trying to fix, but not as good at it yet. But
some things aren't fixable, but you can dialogue about them to at least learn from the process. How about that?
Right.
I think some things are pretty much unfixable today, probably.
Right. Yeah.
It's so ingrained now. Certain things are so ingrained in the world. I don't know if it can be fixed.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like you like to have hope, though.
Well, of course, we always have hope, but
yeah.
I mean, just think of our political system. It's so ingrained in what it does now. I don't know if it can be fixed.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the best thing we could have is term limits, but we'll never do it.
Yeah. I feel like this was not the worst thing to have, though.
Well, I know none of these are horrible when you think about it. I just not sure if we think through everything. I mean, now we want to replace. Was I talking to you about the batteries in cars? They want to go to electric cars, electric everything.
Right.
Well, the problem is those batteries are made out of a material that can't be disposed of. Like once it's used up, it's used up, and you can't reuse it. And it's also harmful because it's like lead in a way. Like it's not lead, but it's lithium. You can't just put it in the garbage. You can't throw it away. You got to. So it's just as dangerous as something else, and then we'll run out of it. So then we won't have batteries. Right. So what good are the battery cars?
Right.
So we're creating, instead of gasoline, we're just creating another substitute for this thing we're going to run out of.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's like that's why I think like the electric car is a great thing. But then it's also like there's a limit to how good they can be. Like, have you heard like Elon Musk speak about how like it's only possible for you to have an electric car that can run for I think like 30 miles, and then you're gonna have to rely more on the fuel after that point.
Yeah.
Like you can't have like a electric car that will run for like, and that's the only because like if you were to fuel it with the like solar panels, like you would need way more like space.
Yeah.
It's like that whole thing.
You'd have like a trailers behind you that have those panels on it to drive the car.
Exactly, and it just wouldn't function as a car. But no, yeah.
I mean, that's why they have those whatever hybrid cars where it's gas and electric at the same time, and then when you are cruising, it's electric. But if you need to, like accelerate or whatever, then it will use the gas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that works, I guess, kind of. I've never had either of those cars. I just have a regular car right now still.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the hybrid is probably the best way to go, though.
Probably for now, because it would work if you need to go somewhere far or fast or something.
Yeah.
You can, and if not, you just use the electric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting way of thinking of it. You good if I start that from back? Like, you good if I just leave that in there? Is that okay?
Do whatever you want.
Okay?
I was trying to.
That's kind of interesting.
I was just trying to talk about something for a minute to kind of get you.
That was interesting, and actually, I might just leave that in there. That's cool. But But yeah, no. I mean, I was doing some research into you and just kind of like went on your LinkedIn and went on all this stuff and
Mm-hmm.
found out a bit about you. I didn't know that you taught research for over almost 12 years.
Well, here I've taught research for 12 years.
Right.
Altogether, I've taught probably research for probably 30 years.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So where were you doing before?
I was at Logan College of
Oh,
Chiropractic
okay.
for a while, and then I was with Phoenix online,
Okay.
the Phoenix University of Phoenix for 10 years, and SLU for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've been in research that whole time. I mean, I've been teaching the doctoral program or doctorate programs, but also doing institutional research, institutional effectiveness and assessment that whole time. Yeah, so I've been doing about 30 years.
How's the doctoral program for research different to what you do for like with us, like in our,
Well, I
in
just
our
taught
class?
doctoral students. The research really isn't that much different. I mean, it's
Oh,
the
okay.
same you're learning the process to write a doctor report.
Mhm.
Those chapters that I'm having you write in my undergrad class are the chapters that you would write in a dissertation.
Okay.
You would just have more depth, more theory underneath it. It'd be a little more thinking versus just doing. Like I'm just having you do the steps as easily as we can so you can learn them in this class, in the undergrad class. But I want you to learn kind of what it means. And then I'm trying to, at the same time in your class, I'm trying to get that idea of how you change your thinking if you're going to write a research paper. It's not an essay. It's not like, a tabloid. It's not an editorial. It's not an opinion. Research is research. It's
Right.
based off of facts, history, literature, and then you have to have that process of how to think about it.
Mm-hmm. How did you get into that whole thinking process? Like, did that
Well, I've
spark
always been
somewhere?
into math.
Okay.
I'm a math guy. I
Right.
taught math and physics, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I've always been into math and numbers, which to me is math is not really to me mathematics in the sense of, I don't know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Math is the logic. There's a logical process to doing math. It doesn't matter what level you're at, you know. So that's what research is, though, a logical process to thinking about something. So it kind of goes together. So it's kind of that math, and I've always been inquisitive about math. Like, how do I get people to learn math? I don't know how you are, but I just know there's people who are afraid of math. They don't like math. They tell me they're not good at math. Whatever.
I'm one.
So for me, my research in terms of that idea was, how can I help people learn math that hate it? I mean, 'cause that's what it is. They literally hate math, and that's why they have it so bad a time. They just won't accept kind of, you can learn it. Anyone can learn math. Anyone can learn anything. You just got to kind of have this mindset of, I'll work through it. Yeah.
I think because it's definitely like the best math professors I've had have broken it down in ways where it's like, normally like the word problems are the ones where I struggle with the most.
Yep.
But it's when you break down those word problems in a way where it all kind of makes sense the simplest, it's like making the most complex thing seem the simplest.
Yes.
And it's like that's kind of when you really see people who didn't understand math actually get to understanding it.
Right.
So you can definitely see how that correlates to research.
Yeah.
But,
And that's kind of like our class, a research class. You got to identify what your problem is first, or you can't study it. Same with a math problem. If you don't understand what it's asking, you can't work the problem. So you have to understand, what does it really want to know first, then you can work the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever have like a preference of like we talk about like qualitative and quantitative. Did you have a preference when you were kind of going into it?
Probably I was more quantitative at first, just because there are so many different statistical tests. So that's like the math side of me. What are all the tests? What do they do, and all that. But as I did more research, like when I started to do grant work or research work, I started to learn that probably a mixed method is better. So in other words, the numbers are fine, but the problem is the numbers only tell you so much. That's when you want to look at, why did they say that? Why did they think that? Why did they come to those conclusions? And that's that qualitative side that can either support or conflict with the data, but it can also explain it better. So I think today I like to do both at the same time.
Right.
You get a much deeper outcome at the end.
Did you ever like look into getting into psychology with that and like looking at like getting, because me, I'm a psychology major, so it's like I like looking at, just like mainly on like how people think and why they think that way, and looking at the science behind it, which so it kind of gives you that quantitative, like the factual and the numbers and whatnot,
Right.
but the measurable part of it. But it's like I'm kind of more interested in the qualitative, like, okay, like what do you think, like just kind of digging into the brain.
No, I actually, my undergrad, I was a math secondary ed is what I got my degrees in, but I started out as a psychology major.
Oh, okay.
I got about halfway through the program, and then it started the labs, and all the stuff, and that I kind of lost interest. It was more, I'm not sure I want to do all that writing at that point, because I was an undergrad. It's like math is great. I'm good at math. I can do math, but it was funny. But I always thought about going back and getting a psychology degree.
Yeah.
At least an undergrad, because that's what I do believe research is, that mixed gives you that, what you were talking about. It gives you that piece. The problem is if you don't have the numbers underneath the qual, you can misinterpret qualitative data, I think. So I think you need both, really. Because a lot of times qualitative is more, I'll call it anecdotal, because you don't get to the depth maybe in that of what you're really asking, or it's hard to ask qualitative questions.
Yeah.
So that's why I still do prefer both, just in case.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have had some like pretty fascinating like trains of thought in your classes throughout 30 years of like research methods and just like teaching people how to research. Like, what were some of the like more interesting subjects or topics that have come up?
Oh man, I've had so many.
Is there anyone like one student that jumped out at you and you're just like, man, that train of thought was really incredible. They really
yeah, there was actually one student did it as a doctoral student, and they did their dissertation on love and military. So how does the military, how effective is the leadership in military? And then they linked love to that, the idea of loving, and they did a grounded theory study. Only one I've really had that's any good that did that. And basically, it's you start not knowing. It's kind of basically I don't know anything, and you do it in reverse. So instead of knowing the problem and finding the answer, you kind of start with nothing and work backwards in grounded theory. So you're developing a theory of how those two go together. It was interesting, and she did a great job. It was a fascinating paper, and I never would have put those two things together.
Right.
You always think of military as just hard nosed, not caring. Go out there and fight, and when you're done, come back, kind of thing.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was really interesting how she connected those two, and actually, she had participants and all that. That was cool.
So she actually like conducted the study and everything.
Yeah, and she
So
she was in the military.
Right. I kind of figured. Yeah. But it's like, and so what were some of the results that came from that?
I mean, she linked like if you think of love as a process, she linked that process into the process of becoming like a recruit, and then becoming a military, not just in the military leave, but like you become ingrained in it, like you become a general, not a general necessarily, but you move up the ranks and you stay in it. It's your career. So how the career of a military person does go through the phases of love within the career. So it was interesting. I thought that was interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of studies that are very interesting. I mean, that's the fun part of teaching research is, I've probably mentored, I don't know, 1,000 doctoral students. It's 1,000 different papers that I was able to look at. Here I review all the papers as they go through eventually. There's always things that pique your mind, like, wow, I never thought of that. I never thought of those two things together. I never thought of doing that kind of thing. Some are repetitive, sure, but that's how research is a lot of times. I mean, you can study the same thing 5 ways. But that's why I like this class, especially that you're in, is that you guys are brand new, so you're coming up with ideas that are kind of like random, but sometimes those are the best, because you're like, wow, those are, the ones you're like, I never really thought of that.
Yeah. And there's topics that have been coming up in class that just the topics wouldn't have even existed, like when you were first teaching the class.
Probably, yeah. Or I didn't look at it in the way they are.
Right.
Your class has a lot of psychology people and criminal justice people. So I'm getting, there's a lot of criminal justice theories and ideas. A lot of parenting ideas. That's the psychology side. And some good questions.
kind of going back to that military thing, it's like it's really interesting to me because it's like you can see how that correlates. Because I mean, the army is all about like serving something bigger than yourself.
Yep.
And so, like serving your country, and you don't even know who these people are. There's no face, or you don't really get to attach yourself to the country. It's just kind of like, yeah, I'm serving these people.
Yep. Yeah, and then the family came out, like, so people think of the military as their family, and that's kind of where that love theme throws through. It's like they'll do anything for their family. Well, that's exactly what they do. I mean, they'll die for each other. I mean, that's how close it is to a family.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, and that's kind of how it that's not exactly where it ended up, but that's where they showed a lot of the linkage was. They related to family, which is we all have our families and we love our families.
Yeah.
So the military is kind of like a family, is what she was kind of alluding to at the end, but not exactly, but along that line.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever read Resilience by Eric Greitens?
I have not.
It's a great book. I think you'd love it. But and at some point in there, he talks about how basically the chemicals in our brain are released to basically that familial bond. I believe it's oxytocin. But basically, it's like the chemical in your brain is released, and it builds connection and the feeling of love and what, like the whole feel, like all the chemicals that you get whenever you're with your family.
Right.
All those chemicals are released whenever you go through shared suffering with someone. And there's no stronger time that those chemicals are released than when you are like suffering with someone.
Right.
And so it's like, obviously in the military, you're going to suffer a lot with these people,
right?
Like whether just through training camp alone.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense.
Interesting.
It makes perfect sense that they have this familial bond, just like from the psychology and the science behind it as well. But yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that trust and loyalty, like to have that has to occur almost. Like those chemicals probably even help that bond of loyalty and trust, because that's how it is. I mean, you're doing that shared experience and your minds connect that and say, well, you're like me, so when something's like you, then you bond to it and you trust it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you trust that it's going to act the same way as you, and it has the same interests, the same end goal. It's not going to betray you.
Yeah. Even though they're different.
Right.
You still, the trust isn't broken then.
Right.
Interesting.
That is, yeah. The military is an interesting one. I would never have thought of connecting love in the military. I definitely see what you mean. That's a really, because it seems so obvious when you break it down. Like,
yeah. Or when you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, we were talking about kind of like segueing completely off that topic, but we had spoken about like life on our planet, and like the Netflix documentary, and I was just kind of like, well, first of all, I was just curious, like, what kind of piqued your interest when you were watching the documentary series, I guess.
Yeah. I think initially, I think the kid in all of us is always enthralled with dinosaurs.
Right.
That idea of dinosaurs or creatures that are no longer here, but just how they lived and how big they were, and just seeing what used to be here that we'll never see again. I think that piques our interest, of course. But also the show, then I wanted to watch it because it talks about how the world's been here for billions of years. And we've been here just a little bitty piece over here. But yet we as humans feel that we know everything about everything. But we're so little in terms of a time frame up here. We have no idea what happened in those billions of years. I mean, we can have a religious view of the billion years. We can have a physical view. That shows a lot about how things evolved over all those billions of years, and what disasters happen to stop things or create breaks in the timeline or in the development or whatever, and how volatile. We're always into the volatility of the world. We're scared, I think, of disasters. Because we can see them, we know they happened, and why would there not be more of them? The planet Earth is not like all of a sudden just like a little thing over here that's totally void of all its history. I think that's the other thing we got to learn to do. Probably not. That's why I like research. Is you have to understand history to understand the future.
Mhm.
So to research something means you go back and historically look at it or understand how it's gotten to where it is before you can think about what's it going to be tomorrow. And I think people lack that vision of using history to move forward
Right.
in their thinking. I'm talking about how we think and develop and really create change.
Right. What do you think about like the patterns of um, like, because normally it does kind of follow a trend of like, every so often, every couple thousand years, there's one of these um, cataclysmic events.
We're sets of billions of years apart, but somewhere in there.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact distance.
Yeah, it was like, I think the longest one was like when T-Rex lived, that one. The Cretaceous period was
Right.
actually for like 1 billion years or something
Right.
like that. But still, it doesn't matter. Every once in a while, there's and right now, what they talked about in that film or that movie was the asteroids.
Right.
We've been hit by an asteroid every once in a while, which changes. It's climatic change. It definitely changes a lot of things. And then the other thing that show hasn't talked about, but I haven't seen it all yet, but I'm guessing they're going to talk about the movement of the plates.
Right.
Our world is changing how it is shaped.
Mhm.
The land masses are changing. Now they're talking about a rift in Africa, that part of Africa is splitting. So there's going to be now a new ocean or a new eventually. I mean, it's going to take thousands of years.
Right.
We won't see it.
Right.
But there's actually movement there that part of the continent is changing, just like it has from the very, very, very beginning. But I think, yes, will something happen again? It has to. I mean, think of the planet. I mean, that's why I always say we're just this little piece over here. And I'm not going to say yes to global warming or no to global warming, but we know so little. And we know there were several ice ages. There were several non-ice ages. So probably we're going to have another ice age.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere. I mean, I don't know when, but I'm not really worried about it. I'm not going to be here. I mean, we're talking thousands of years for it to happen.
Right.
But we'll have another ice age. We'll have another meteor hit the planet. Something will happen. It has to. I mean, it's just a math person, being a math person, statistically, it can't be over. Like a volcano will erupt somewhere that's never erupted. It's just statistically it's going to happen. Because our planet is alive. It's evolving. It's growing. And we want that to happen. Otherwise, the option is Earth is dying. Now, that's not good for us either, because then Earth won't exist.
I think that's kind of something that our species does a bit way too much. It's like attach ourselves to the planet. And it's like, I was listening to Elon, funny, like Elon Musk, he was talking about how in order for our species to essentially live forever, we have to become multiplanetary. And he said, he was basically, I think he was on the Lex Fridman podcast. And do you know who Lex Fridman is? He's like a big AI guy. But he's just like a super genius when it comes to that stuff. But basically, he had Elon Musk come on there, and he was talking about how if we were to examine every planet there is, and we keep going out further and further out, it's almost inevitable that we would find countless instances of life on other planets, or like the remains of single planet life forms that something cataclysmic happened on their planet and it wiped them all out, and then that planet died, and like all the life was just gone off that planet. And if we want to go on and live for further than just the short lifespan of Earth, then we have to become multiplanetary. And that's kind of what he's trying to achieve with getting life on Mars and getting life on other planets. And
well, I mean, again, if we think logically, there has to be a planet just like Earth somewhere else. Doesn't even have to be anybody on it or any life. We don't have to even argue that. But we could argue that there is a planet that has water and air on it, just like Earth, somewhere. We find it, we could go there and live, just like we are on Earth. And like, Mars, they're saying there is water on Mars now underneath some, there's different ideas. They found the moon has a tunnel system within it, caverns and tunnels. We could live underground on the moon if we really wanted to. I mean, that's a possibility because it's not, the heat and cold doesn't change there so much underground, even on the moon. So there are options, but people don't think about this. So let's say you took the Earth and flattened it out and made it this surface of the table. So here's the Earth on this, the flatness of this table. That's all the surface there is on the Earth right there. Okay, so then you got to take like this much away because that's the oceans and the water or something,
Right.
whatever it is.
Right.
And there's probably another little piece over there that's the mountains, which you can't, like Himalayas, you can't live in certain areas.
Right.
Okay. So that means there's only this much space.
Mm-hmm.
So say people used to live over here, right? Well, now there's people living here and that, So as the population grows, what happens? We fill it up.
Right.
Well, we are filling it up still. There's more people today than ever, and it's still growing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, eventually we're going to have to find a way to either go somewhere else to live or live a different way. I don't know. But I mean, yeah, we have to look toward the future now because we don't have a way to travel to Mars that's really convenient,
Right.
or the moon, or even to a planet you talked about in another galaxy or solar system, which is going to be probably at least a light year away. I mean, we'd have to travel the speed of light for a year to get there. That's
Right.
a long way away.
Right.
So in order for us to start to realize that we have to be able to colonize somewhere else, we first have to design a way to get there within reason.
Right.
Like you can't say, okay, you're going to live for like a year somewhere going the speed of light. A year is a long time to be in like frozen anime, however we're going to do it. So we got to figure out how to travel in space quickly, and be able to navigate it. So until we do that, there's no use in thinking about going to Mars, really, in a sense. I mean, we can kind of get to Mars now, but it's way too long, still even just to get to Mars, and that's just the planet next to us.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're making progress, though.
We are. I mean, it's possible. I mean, they're talking about having some people go there.
Right.
And live there, like in pods and stuff right now, and try to start to colonize it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's still pretty much yes, we could do it physically, but it's still right now kind of a dream because it's really inconvenient. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. Right now.
Right.
And there's no quick way to get it. And then if something would happen, there's no way to save them. I mean, basically, if you would be one of those people that goes to Mars, we can't come and get you if something happens.
Right. Right, you're right. You're stranded, and
you
will die.
That's right. And then you'll die there, basically. Yeah.
But I think that kind of goes back to the whole military thing of like some people are willing to die for that cause.
Yeah. And what if it works? What if they find water? What if they find a way to create an atmosphere in certain places? I mean, it's possible that Mars could be colonizable without a lot of science fiction to it. Maybe we don't know. We have to see.
Science fact starts off as science fiction.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Or a lot of science fiction shows you watch today are based on factual things we already have or do, which is scary too sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know. I was kind of going back to the life on our planet.
Yes.
And it was talking about how, I mean, the thing that kind of piqued my interest there was, for me, I was looking more at like, you see the dominant species change from fungi to birds to reptiles to mammals, just this whole chain.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I looked at that and I was like, okay, so what's next? Because I was looking at it, and I was like, is AI next? Like, is artificial intelligence, is this, because I think there's an argument to be made because of how intelligent it is. But then I also kind of question it in a way as well, because I don't know if it has the same emotional intelligence, and I don't know if that emotional intelligence is actually needed. So it's kind of where I find myself on that.
Yeah, I don't know what to believe really totally about AI right now.
Right.
It exists. But how does it exist? I think is my point right now. Could AI live on its own? Basically, is what we're kind of coming down to eventually. in that thought.
Mm-hmm.
So like you had mammals, and then there was man, and man dominated the mammals even. So then man was the control, basically, the dominant, not necessarily dominant physical, because there were definitely things that can kill us and are much more physical than us. But we either had the mental ability or the ability to build things, whatever, to keep us safe from
Right.
that. So I don't know what AI can do. So I guess we can't live without animals or plants because we have to be able to eat and have subsistence. So is AI going to kind of be the same way? Is AI going to be dominant?
Because it doesn't really require food
But
in a sense. It requires
has
energy.
but it demands us to be there to do something.
That's the thing.
Or can it? I don't know.
That's the scary part. It doesn't require us at all. Because it can actually, AI has got to the point to where it can multiply itself, and it's like AI is. It doesn't even need a partner to multiply. It can just recreate itself.
Well, yeah, okay, but it's a machine. Remember,
Yes,
it's a computer. It's theoretically knowledge somewhere,
right,
or bits of ones and zeros, but in a machine,
right.
in an electrical machine.
But it learns, and
So how does it create electricity if we're not here?
that's the thing is I don't know that. I'm not
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, I think the idea is AI would use us,
right,
to as not as food, but to
right.
make sure it has electricity, it has a place to live, it has I mean, so it's kind of like what we would do with animals.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
What can AI have over us? What can it do?
It can
It's
it can give itself a physical body. Like there are like the robots with like like it, you could have these robots running on treadmills, and they're just.
But it has to build. Who's going to build the robot?
I mean,
AI would build its
they're
own
already
robot?
built. They're already built. There's already AI that's in these robots. Like now,
I know, but what if they all break? Who rebuilds them? Who fixes them?
yeah, you just kind of got to hope that there's one left to fix them all. I guess that's a good question.
Yeah, I understand the question. I'm just thinking AI is something. The better question is, we just talked about how we want to live on other planets. We as humans want to change and live on other planets and have whatever, all that stuff. The better question is, how do humans become what's the next step for humans?
Mm-hmm.
Like right now we are pretty much stuck where we are, I think. We use animals and plants, and we use electricity or gas or whatever it is. I mean, have we really changed? Are we evolving?
Eckhart Tolle, he's a guy who thinks a lot about consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a book called A New Earth.
Mm-hmm.
He has several other books, but that's the one that I read most recently. And his idea on how we're slowly evolving and over the next several thousand years is that our consciousness is all going to become one. It's almost like you probably are. Have you ever seen Rick and Morty?
No.
Okay, well, Rick and Morty, they have I think her name is like Unity,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But it's basically this one, I guess, woman, but she kind of is really gruesome. I'm going to describe it this way, and it might sound weird, but like basically she pukes into these people's mouth. It's a cartoon. She pukes into this person's mouth, and then that person becomes an extension of her consciousness.
Right.
And then they go on and they just
so her consciousness spreads.
So then this one planet, she has now taken over this entire planet, and this entire planet is her. And it's kind of like that same, to me, it's kind of how almost I picture it, where it's like, it's not people going around puking each other, but it's like how we all think with a common goal and we're all going to be doing our own separate thing, but we're all going to be kind of, I think it's just an interesting idea of where we can all be aligned. Maybe war doesn't happen. Because maybe it gets to the point where we all actually do think the same way, and we all kind of agree, and we all. So it's like maybe that's the way we get to. I don't know, because I feel like war is kind of a natural part. I feel like that conflict is a natural part of humanity and just of life on Earth. I mean, even in the Amazon, you see ants killing ants. Like it's always that conflict.
Yeah, but again, but is there a way for us to evolve beyond that primal a way of living that only the strong survive. That's why the ants eat other ants. I mean, that's why everything else besides us does that. But we still do it because we somehow are still stuck in that I'll call it that caveman, let's take over the world feeling, or I have to get rid of the tribe next door because we're going to run out of food. There's not whatever. So we still have that mentality that the strongest should survive, and the strongest commands and runs everything and controls everything. So I agree that I think that has to change first in us. We have to realize that we don't have to be like the ants in the Amazon. But how do we get over that? I mean, how do we get out of that? We're stuck in it. I agree because we feel that fighting is the answer to solving a problem. That's how we normally solve problems, is like by fighting.
I mean, you've been around for more of history than I have. So I mean, would you say that during your lifespan we've gone more towards recognizing the similarities in people than we used to? Like, would you say we're becoming more separated or more united, just generally?
That's interesting. If I look at it from just an American view, we become more separated and more selfish, I think. It's kind of that me generation. And then still today, it's kind of like we got to make more money. We got to be more this. We got to. So I think in that sense, we're not moving in that direction. We're just kind of stuck in this thing where we are. It's like we're kind of trying to be like our parents, I guess. You know, that's how they lived. They had to get a job. They had to do this. They had to, and then we're stuck in that rut. I mean, other countries, you know, you would hope it, but well, Russia invaded Ukraine. Well, that's not a good sign. I mean, and you know, China is now, there's just each country you can see does odd things that are not showing that we're moving toward this consciousness of what's good for our world, what's good for our. I mean, we could talk about our planet. I mean, that seems like that could be a uniter, but it's not. Like, think about that. We're going to run out of space. We're going to run out of air. We're going to run out of everything. So, but that's not uniting us. I mean, that which should be a uniter, I think. What if we all worked together to feed the hungry of the world? We would have no hungry then.
Right.
I mean, there's things we could do to unite around that, but the consciousness right now is inner. We're into our own egos, I think, consciously right now. We're not letting our egos in a way go. Like we need an ego a consciousness that we could all believe in somehow. I don't know what it is, but
right.
I don't see it happening. I haven't seen it happen. I mean, now wars just pop up when people feel like having a war. Almost, it feels like to me.
Right.
We haven't had a World War I or II again, but Vietnam was about control. A lot of the war in Ukraine and Russia was about material. What Ukraine had, and Russia wanted it because that's the biggest wheat distributor in the world.
Right.
I mean, they wanted that, and there was some other resources there. China's running out of space. I mean, China's actually overpopulated, and they're trying to figure out what to do with that. So what are they going to do? So it's all still about kind of a thing.
So that's actually not true, So it just came out not that long ago, but they were actually fabricating their numbers.
Yeah.
And they're actually severely underpopulated. So it was like they were, because of the one-child policy, there was a whole thing of where parents were only having one child, right. And so obviously less children were being born than people were dying. So the population was severely decreasing for about a decade, and they could over a decade, and they were hiding the fact because they wanted to. So a lot of people have that thought where it's like, oh yeah, that China is overpopulated, but they're actually severely underpopulated at the moment, and their economy it's looking really bad, and there's globalization specialist who I had seen speak about it not that long ago, a couple months ago, and he was talking about how like their economy is in really bad shape over the next decade if they don't start basically having children again. Because they've now removed the one,
and they'll have no people to take over when they won't even. It's kind of like the nursing shortage in America. No one's going to be a nurse over there. Just won't even have people.
Right.
Basically, there'll be no one to take over.
Exactly.
Yeah. We could use India as an example. I know they're overpopulated.
Right.
So
Yeah.
same
no,
idea.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. But China
Yeah.
was in that vein, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah. And then they
Yeah.
completely overcompensated,
Right,
and now they just
right.
kind of now they're in the.
but
complete
India's
flip
in the
side.
same situation.
Yeah,
They're
they are.
overpopulated. Same idea there. But so yeah, I just think it's interesting that we can't move beyond ourselves right now. That's what you're talking about with that consciousness, I think.
Right.
How do we move beyond being just about me? And I hate to say it, but I think the answer is family.
Mhm.
Remember well, you don't remember this, but like when I was a kid, my grandma and grandpa lived on a farm, and if their corn crib burnt down, everyone around there would get together, get the wood, build another one. It wasn't about, well, too bad for those people.
Yeah.
It was a community. It was everybody knew who I was, and they'd tell my mom and dad if I did something wrong. It was that the what is that? A village? You need a village to raise somebody. Same idea, but now today it's not like that. There is no community awareness, a community building, or that idea that we need to help our neighbor if they're in trouble.
I think I'm trying to think like where that came from, because it's like, how do you lose something that's as valuable as that? Because it's like, you think about how you almost have to have that mindset of like, no, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing, knowing full well you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how does one go about developing that mindset, not just as one person, but as an entire like generation of people? We've developed that mindset. It's like, how does that go about happening?
Okay, well, you have, I'll use this loosely, but you have the hippie generation come in, which is all about themselves.
Mhm.
That whole issue of, they hate to say it, but, they would have drugs and drinking and uh, sexual that would normally not be accepted. So they do things unacceptable. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
Which then makes them outcasts or not wanted. That's one thing that happened. We had a lot of change where we used to restrict things, and all of a sudden it kind of opened up. And it's like, no, wait, we all have our rights and we all have our things, that kind of thing. So people started to think that way. But at the same time, you can also then, if you're a government that wants to, China with this overpopulation, they made people only have like one child. I mean, so they dictated to the people what they wanted. Well, America, we don't quite do it that way. We don't have a dictator that says, okay, we all have to do this now.
Right.
But the government in our country still has ways to do things. No different than England with the parliament. All those groups can control the population by doing things. Okay, so let's say our government then said, well, what if we change our policy so that it doesn't support the family, but it supports the individual? So you can make policy change that then forces the family or the community to break up. No different than they used to give tax breaks for being married. Now, basically, that's changed so that if you're married, it doesn't really help you or hurt you. They still give some tax breaks for having children, but so the government can change that thinking, make us go away from, well, let's all stay together and build that crib, into other things. Costs can do that. Well, we got to insure everything, and well, there's liability. What if the community helps them and the barn burns down? Well, then they're going to sue and get a lawyer. We've gotten into that where everything, no one is responsible for anything, but somebody is, which
Right.
then creates that. Remember, we talked about in the Army, you have trust and loyalty, but when you can then turn your back on somebody and get away with it, or sue somebody for something, well, then there's no trust or loyalty anymore. So why would I help somebody?
Right.
No different than we used to have where, you've heard, well, you probably haven't heard of the lawsuits, but some guy got in an accident and the car was on fire and the guy drug him out of his car. This started some of this liability with the sunshine laws, where he drug him out of the car burst into flames. He would have been dead and the car burned up. But since he dragged him and put him in the ditch over here, the guy then lost the use of his legs because he said, well, when you drug me over there, you severed my spine or something, whatever.
Right.
But he would have been dead. But he sued and won a bunch of money.
Right.
McDonald's, that hot cup of coffee,
Yeah, right.
or
Right.
or
Yeah.
whatever, any of those lawsuits you get. Well, then no one's going to do anything because, well, I can sue, or if I help somebody, I'm going to get in trouble then.
Right.
So we now have a society that's built around distrust.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we have a village that's going to raise a kid? Why are we going to have a community that's going to help build a barn? There's no advantage anymore to that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to the person who lost the barn, there is, but
Right.
no one else is.
Right.
You don't get anything for that.
Right.
Because now it's about getting something.
Yeah.
You hate to say it, that's what it is. We just lost we were losing the family unit, I think, is the issue in America. I would go back to that. When we started to dissolve the family, either physically, psychologically, politically, whatever, wherever that point is back here. That's what's created this, what you just talked about.
It's like just putting kindness out in the world, and even if it might come back to you, it might not. It's just like, I think, because kindness does come back to you eventually. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of like, can you see, can you before you commit that act of kindness, can you see how it's going to come back to you, or can you not? Because it will eventually.
Yeah.
Because like, if kindness is put out in the world, then eventually it's going to make someone else's day better, than someone else's day better, someone else's day better. Eventually,
kind of pay it forward.
Right.
There was a movie about pay it forward. Same idea.
Right.
Yeah. But that's interesting. You said it that way. If you're going to pay something forward, you shouldn't even think about, is it going to come back to me? That's not the reason to do pay it for me. Yes, it is in a way, but it isn't. You're doing it to be kind to somebody else. You don't care about being paid back. That's the whole idea of, let's build the barn for that guy. You're not expecting any payback, except if your barn burns down. Then, but you're not expecting that. You don't want that to happen. So I think that whole idea of, we could go back to love thy neighbor.
Right.
We're just supposed to love people, be kind to people, care about people. I called it, we talked about in class, the golden rules, really what you should live by. Mm-hmm. Do unto others, you have others do unto you. If we all did that, that would be that society you're talking about. Mm-hmm. We would have a consciousness that's shared, in a sense. It'd be like, well, we just want to treat everybody like we all want to be treated. But we can't. Something's in the way. That's what you're asking. Mm-hmm. What is that thing? What gets in our way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It is a weird one. It's like, I wish there was just a simple fix. I wish there was just a, you just, I don't know, because it's like something happened along the way where we just stopped caring about, it's almost like we just stopped caring about ourselves. It's like we just started living more in the moment. And we just stopped caring about our grandchildren. We stopped caring about the people we don't know.
Today's our phones are like that. Think of the internet. Remember the internet? We were talking about the AI and the internet. Think about this. The AI is actually instantaneous. Mm-hmm. There is no time wait anymore. If you really had AI going, it would, because it generates itself automatically, and it would know everything almost right then. Where before, when I was a kid, we had a TV and a transistor radio. That's how we got our news and stuff. But it was always like a day later, or 2 days later, or 3 days, or whatever. Right. Now, I take my phone out of my pocket, and I have everything about the world right there in front of me already, instantaneously almost.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're thinking. We think everything should be instantaneous. So when I say, I'll give you $1, well, what are you going to give me back? Like, that's how you want that. Remember, a pay it forward idea?
Right.
It's like, well, if I do something for you, you got to do something back for me right away.
Right.
That's it's built that instantaneous feedback thing, instantaneous fun. I don't know.
I don't know. Right. It's almost disturbing. Like, where did the attachment to now come from? Like, the attachment to like just that needing something right now. Because it's like, you need that. I think it's possibly just like the more we the more dopamine, the more of that, instant gratification drug, and it's just, the more dopamine we got, the more we craved it, and the more we just want something now, and you kind of, I guess maybe that might play the part, I guess.
Well, because we're selfish.
Yeah.
And we don't know what it means to struggle. We don't know what it means to have pain in our life.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. Look at kids. I mean, look at little kids today. Their parents just take care of them all the time. Well, remember, one of our students is going to do, remember that helicopter parenting idea? Mm-hmm. Their kids don't feel any pain or sorrow or anything almost, because their parents take care of it instantaneously.
Right.
So they don't know how to handle, and I'll go back to what we started with. They don't know how to think about what's happening. Mm-hmm. So if I gave you some information and you thought about it, like actually truly thought about it, internalized it, then you wouldn't be like we are today as much. Because it wouldn't have to be instantaneous. Let me think about that a while. How many people say that anymore? No one ever says that anymore, almost. It's like, well, what do I get?
Right.
Back to that thought you just had.
Right.
But if we were able to, suffering's not a bad thing. Pain is not a bad thing. I don't mean physically, I'm going to stab you in the arm and it's going to hurt. I mean, we have to learn how to deal with life. Life is not fair. I mean, that show we were talking about, Life on Earth, you could see it's not fair, right?
Right.
I mean, they would eat each other, kill each other, anything could happen.
Right.
So it's not really fair. It's just what it is. And how do you deal with life? I don't think people can deal with life right now.
Yeah.
So they just want the dopamine. They want what's going to feel me good. I need some more of it. I need some more of it. I need some more of it. It's like an addiction to that feeling. And if you're going to feel bad or sorrow, then you're going to kind of have a problem. You're going to have a fit. You're going to have a something goes on.
Yeah. I think a big part of maybe like getting ourselves back on track is just us. Is just the human ability to, broadly speaking, for us to be able to do hard things.
Yeah.
Just like I'm big on just doing things that I don't like doing. Mm-hmm. Just like, I don't know, like I'm not a morning person at all, but I wake up at 6:37
and get going.
But I wake up at that time every single day because it's something that I know that when I do that, I get more stuff done.
That's right.
And I'm more productive in the mornings than I would be at the, like, as if I was to be awake for 16 hours a day, but I'm awake until midnight, then I'm going to naturally be less productive than I would be if I was awake at 6 a.m. and went to bed a little earlier. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to choose that one because I get more stuff done. And even though it sucks, I don't enjoy it. It's like, just doing, it's like people just need to be more intentional.
Yes.
It's like, now, if you're a type of person who you get more stuff done, if you were to be a night owl, you go ahead and do that. Yeah. But it's like being intentional and actually recognizing yourself. I don't like you said, it goes back to thinking, understanding yourself.
Yeah.
People don't think for themselves, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it still goes back to us being able to recognize what we can do and cannot do, but also understanding that we can do more than we think we can. Sure, it might be a little hard. It might take a little work, but that's okay. That's our responsibility. I mean, go back to that. Go back to us as human beings. We have a certain responsibility to the species to be the best we can. So you figured out to be the best I can, I get up at 6 a.m, go to bed at 10 at night. Okay, well, that's okay. That's what makes you the best of you. Then that's great. You're doing kind of what you're, I don't say supposed to be, but you're thinking about yourself and what makes you the best. That's really what it comes down to. And I'm sure you treat other people well, because you connect to them, you kind of feel them, you kind of have a sense of empathy, caring. What else is there? I mean, think of those things that you do, probably that you are proud of, and well, you do them well.
Right.
Those are probably good things.
Right. I think it's also, we look for the good things that we do in ourselves because we want ourselves to. We all see ourselves as a good person. No one goes to bed at night and says, man, I'm such a horrible person. I'm such a narcissist.
You're probably right.
It's like
but they may not be realistic about it.
Right.
That's the issue, maybe then.
Right.
Psychologically, probably they're not realistic about what they're saying about themselves.
Right.
I go back to what you said earlier a few minutes ago. A lot of people don't like themselves, but they won't even admit that. So if you don't like yourself, how can you say I'm a good person? Almost, because if you don't like yourself, you must be doing something that's making you not like yourself.
Yeah. I think it's just kind of, it comes back to the whole idea of like, you got to do hard things, do things you don't enjoy, but things you recognize as things it's like, I feel like that's kind of where self-respect comes from. Is it, for me, I feel like the more I do things I don't enjoy, but the things I recognize I need to do, then the more I respect myself.
Well, but you're being responsible and accountable as a person to yourself. You're not doing that for other people. You're doing that for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no one else can give me my self-respect, so I've got to go out there and earn it myself.
That's right.
It's another thing that comes back to intentionality. But yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. It's another thing kind of, I guess that kind of comes back to confidence. It's like, this is something that I had seen like Chris Williamson. He's another podcaster I love.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy from the UK.
Yeah.
But he gave this one example, and it was another Rick and Morty thing actually. But it's when like basically they walk into this big auditorium. It's like this big it's this guy giving this big like basically thieving expedition kind of thing. He's just like showing people how great he is as a thief kind of thing. It's this whole thing. And he walks in, and he and basically everyone starts booing. And like Rick just everyone just starts booing Rick because he's this guy. This guy just doesn't like Rick very much, and this guy. So Rick is the enemy of this guy. So everyone starts booing Rick, and he says, "Your boos mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer." And it's like that whole thing of like, I don't care about what you guys think. I don't care about what you guys like. I think people need to pay. I think it's not necessarily wrong that we're selfish. We just need to be more intentional in what we're selfish about.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. I understood. I heard it, but I don't know if I don't know if I agree with it.
Because I feel like
maybe selfish is the wrong word there. I think, but
maybe that just comes from the idea that it comes from the idea that selfish has its negative connotation when maybe it shouldn't.
Well, but confidence doesn't mean selfishness either.
No, but it comes from the fact that we have a certain level of respect for ourselves and what we do and what we're capable of, and it's dependent on what we do and what we do alone. No one else can provide that for us.
But that's not selfishness, though, necessarily.
It's disinterest in what other people. I said it was like it's more of, maybe that's the wrong word. Maybe it's more of a disinterest in other people's opinions and disinterest in.
Well, but in the context of bullying, I agree with that.
Yeah. But
you're still interested in what others think, in the sense of like, well, what would you think about painting the bridge red? You'd still be interested in that. Right. It's just you're disinterested in their non-interest in you yourself, because you have the confidence to know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So I understand that comment, but I think to be selfish means you don't care about anybody about anything.
Right.
It's even more broad than just that one instance of they were booing him and I don't care what you think. That to me is just confidence, knowing what I know, knowing who I am, and it's a little different than just selfishness. I think that's confidence.
Right.
Now, if you're egocentric, that means then you think you're better than them because you know what you know. That's right. That's a different level of that. So.
And unfortunately, that might be a direction that we are headed in. Kind of what we're talking about.
I think that's where we are. It's great. We have people who are confident and know, but I think they become a little egotistical then eventually or something.
Right.
Which is the wrong, like they're not moving it the other way. It's like, that's be like going over here and saying, I don't care at all, versus I know what I'm doing, but now I can help you. Right. And I care what you're doing, but I just don't care what you think of me because I'm confident in what I do. Mm-hmm. But I can share what I do with you, versus I don't have to share with you what I do because I just know I'm the best.
And even going as far as saying I can help you, but I'm not going to force. Yeah. I'm not going to force my opinion upon you if you don't want to hear it.
That's right, and that's but that's over here. That means you're just respecting them also.
Yeah. That's something my dad's been trying to help me with. Is like, because as I've kind of started to, and I'm still young and clueless about a lot of stuff, but it's like as I start to kind of figure some things out, mm-hmm. then naturally I kind of tried to help people out along the way and just kind of been like, hey, look, this is what I found out, and my dad's kind of teaching me is like, not everyone needs to be helped. Not everyone wants your help.
Right.
Um,
Like you can talk to someone about something, and then when you know they don't want to hear it anymore, then you're done. I mean,
Right.
you can still always try to help people. Helping people's not wrong. It's when you force the help, like you said, on someone, that's when it becomes wrong. Uh, unless they can't help themselves. I mean, that's a
Right.
whole different issue.
Right.
You know, like
Right.
people who are addicts, that's a little different. You may be more forced there because I want to, say you had my mom used to smoke, and I pretty much got on her and forced her to quit smoking. Very,
Yeah.
not very nice sometimes, but she
Right.
quit and she lived longer because of it.
Right.
But I wouldn't do that like on things that are meaningless. Like, why
Right.
would I force myself on people about, well, I think you have to learn to turn the light off every time you come in a room.
Right.
And if you don't, you're a bad person. That's just being mean.
Right. Right. And that's just judgmental. And that's it's a whole train of thought of like how.
Yeah. I think you as a young person, the best advice I could give you as a young person is you just got to learn to let things go. At that point, at certain points, just let things go. There's nothing you can do about everything, and you won't. It won't matter. So just let it go. You can have your convictions. You can have your things. You have your principles and your convictions. But you know what? If people are going to go beyond that, and you just got to kind of say, okay. I mean, you're not going to change a person by forcing them to do something. It never works. You could educate them, teach them, maybe.
Yeah. How are we looking for time? Do you know what the time is?
No, that's about right.
That's about right. Then.
Yeah, that's about 10. We've been here an hour about.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have a lift. We have a team lift.
Ah,
we gotta get
what
to.
time's that?
It's about 10:30ish.
Yeah. That clock's about right.
Okay, cool. So we go for a little while then.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. It's just what were you saying? You said, I mean, letting things go is a great topic because it's like that comes back to the ego, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Like I can be confident, but at some point I just let it go because it's not. I'm not going to help it. I'm not helping me. I'm not going to help them. So at that point, you just got to let it go, and you can't worry about everything. You're not going to feed the hungry of the world. You're not going to save everybody in the world. You have to admit it at some point. I mean, unless you're like like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, where you have billions and billions of dollars, you and I can do what we can, and then we're done. We to scream and yell about it isn't going to help.
Yeah.
That whole idea of you can support something, and then you can support it so bad that it makes you like a lunatic almost. Then that's when it's wrong. Just you need to let it go at that point. And even feelings, you can try to help people. You can see people. You can help them. Teaching's no different. I mean, I've been teaching for a long time, and I hate to say it, there are people I know that I'm not reaching, that I'm not teaching them anything, but I got to let it go at some point because otherwise I'd stop teaching. Like it would hurt me so bad that I would just have to stop teaching. And it's not. I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. It's just we're either not connecting, they're not wanting it. It doesn't matter who's doing something wrong or right. It's just that they're not learning, and maybe there's no way they can learn it. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but there are times when I know I haven't reached somebody, but I just got to let that go. I got to work. I got to go and help the people I can help at that point because I know I have helped people. So I just need to remember that. Kind of you talk about remember the good, work on keep the good in your mind and keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting how our brains naturally come towards you gravitate towards the bad though.
You do, yeah.
So it's really interesting how that is. So it's like you have to again intentional, be intentional. Like be intentional about what you think about. Be intentional how you act. Be intentional about looking at the good. It's like,
but no, you're not perfect. Also,
right? Exactly.
You can do a bad thing every once in a while. You just got to get over it.
Yeah.
I mean, bad things. Well, I mean, they haunt you. I got to tell you, that's how we are. That's how we are. Our minds are like that. You do something bad, like if I lied to my grandson about something, I'll remember that forever.
Right.
But if I made him so happy he just started crying about something we did together, I'll remember that. But somehow the bad things always overshadow good a lot. That's somehow in our society is more about looking at something wrong or, oh, you made a mistake, that kind of thing, versus, well, I did 40 things right and one wrong, but they always remember the wrong.
Right. I don't know.
That's how we are, I think.
It's a weird one.
We're very negative.
We are negative.
Yeah. So think positive. Let it go. So just you got to let those things go and just work on keep the positive there going.
Yeah. I think part of that also comes with like who you surround yourself with, and again the intentionality of like surrounding yourself with people who are gonna remind you of the good things that you've done and remind you of the good person you are, remind you of stuff like
and confidence. Confidence helps. You just got to remember,
Right.
I'm confident in these things, so just keep that there.
Yeah. In terms of like confidence and like we were talking about like doing hard things, like what was the hardest thing you did to like help build confidence within yourself?
Wow.
Even it doesn't necessarily have to be like something that's like, you know, like the physically hardest thing to do, but just mentally like getting yourself to do it every day or getting yourself to do it whenever you need to do it. It's like you hate it the most.
Wow. I don't know if I can even. I mean, you know, I got to think about that. I mean, I always studied all the time, but I didn't like it. I read a lot, but I didn't like reading. I mean, there's a lot of things like that you did. But I worked all the time. I worked through high school. I worked through college, so that was hard. I mean, just like I did things that were hard, but I didn't really think they were hard. It's almost like 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 you probably had things that you thought were hard, but you did them anyway because you kind of had to. Like it was just what it is. I'm just going to go do it. I mean, I remember shoveling off. We lived out in the middle of nowhere, and we had like an acre of driveway it was like 600 feet of driveway. And I had to shovel that one time because the mower broke, the plow broke. So we were out there shoveling that. That was pretty hard. I mean, just weird things, but you just do them because what else are you going to do? I mean, it's not like you can't.
I think that's where the mindset.
Is that what it is?
I think that's what it is. I think it's because some people don't. Some people will just tell themselves, "Oh, I can't,"
and then just don't do
and
it.
Then just don't do it.
Yeah.
I think it really does lie within that mindset of like some people will really just say, "Oh, well, can't do it. Guess I'm not doing that today."
Yeah.
Some people will just walk up and just say, "Oh, well, I'm not shoveling it, so I guess that's just not being done until we get this new plow." You know, I feel like a lot of it is the difference of you tell yourself it has to be done. How am I going to do it?
Yeah, I guess the hardest thing I did was, this will be funny, probably it'll probably laugh, but I was two of my best friends in college were cheerleaders, and I kind of worked all the time, and I was never really very. I didn't go out a lot because I worked, and then I had to go study, and then I went home and slept. I mean, basically, that was my life there for a while when you got to work through college. So they convinced me to become a cheerleader, and I was not that kind of person at all. So I agreed. I said, okay. So that's probably the hardest thing I ever did. But we had to go be public. I had to work out every day in the gym. I mean, it was like a total difference in my life at that point.
Yeah.
And then I still worked some, so I was still trying to get work in there a little bit so I could still have a job.
Right.
But I guess that was the hardest thing I ever did because it was not something I really wanted to do.
Right.
But they were my friends, and it was like, oh well, that would be cool, and whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so different than who I was at that point.
Yeah.
But it changed me. I mean, it made me a better. I mean, I think that's what you also got to agree is that if you do something really hard, look at the change that it made in you. That probably made you a better person. That takes the pain away from doing those hard things sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the great thing of like just like all the like they say it isn't age that helps you mature. It's suffering and pain and like it's like it's just like teaching you to. It's like look at like you said like the bad things kind of teach.
Well, it makes you look at yourself. I think at the same time when you do that, you're like, wow. I used to not eat a lot of different kinds of food, and since I got married, I've been eating all kinds of different food, and it's like, why did I never want to eat those? Your mindset was, I'm just going to do what I did forever, the same, and then you start realizing that, wow, that's not really the way to be. You can do different things. You can be different things. You can do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Be adventuresome. I think that's what we lose as kids. Today I think little kids have all these creative, adventuresome ideas in their head, and they go play and do them. But as we grow up, we start to like lose all that, and we get in a rut, and we're like, oh, we can't do that. Kind of back to the I can't change, I can't, and that's what we do. We just basically can't do anything then.
Yeah. It's always just like the creativity, playfulness. What willingness to make mistakes. There's so many things that kids have on us that we're just not good at as we
They
grow
don't even
up.
know they make mistakes, though.
Right.
When you're little, you have no idea if you made a
Yeah.
mistake or not.
Right. And they don't even care.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
But I think that's probably another thing that's probably that's that negative side of us. Is that you've seen our class as college students. None of them want to make a mistake.
Right.
They never want to even say something because I might be wrong.
Right.
Like,
I'm not gonna lie. That's one thing that's kind of like I feel like I talk more than anyone else.
Oh yeah, you do talk a lot
but it's not like I'm not an extrovert at all. It's just like I just try and not care about like if what I'm saying is right or wrong, because I just like, he asked a question. All right, what's the first thing that came to mind? This.
But that's what the point of the class is. I'm trying to get you to talk about it and give me what are you thinking? I mean, that's Alex, the person back there. What do you think? I don't know. What do you want me to think? I don't want you to think anything. I just want to know what you're thinking. I mean,
right. I don't know. Yes. This. Yeah. You see people trying sometimes in the class, and you see like there's people who will talk in the class and not have a clue what they're talking about. I think
we know who you're talking. Yeah, I understand.
But it's like I think the intentionality is, and I do kind of respect it. Of like, I do respect the fact that you would continue to say something and ask a question.
Tries. Come on, yeah.
And it's like, other people in the class will laugh about the fact of some of the questions that she's asking. And like, you guys aren't even asking questions. You guys aren't even.
Well, yeah, they don't say anything. Some of them don't. You're like, come on, at least there's a discussion going on.
Right.
I mean, you talked about pain and suffering. Think about it. Learning is no different. You have to change what you in your head. Like, okay, I learned how to. 5 + 5 isn't 9; it's 10. Well, that's pain and suffering. I had to change what I thought I knew was 9 to 10. Okay, pain and suffering is no different. I did this new task, and it was really, really hard. But gosh, now guess what I can do? I've now learned to do. So you're still learning. So it's not that pain and suffering is needed to learn, but in a way, you think about it, it is. You have to stretch yourself to get better.
Right.
You play what, basketball?
Yeah.
So if you never practiced and never stretched, like I can run faster, I can dribble quicker, I can learn a new dribble technique. If you never stretched yourself, you wouldn't be any good at basketball. You would never be a good basketball player then. You'd just be a basketball player that knows what they knew when they played basketball.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's pain and sure, it's pain and suffering, but it's not. It's learning.
Yeah.
Growing, developing. I mean, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. Like I heard someone use the example one time of like the learning is almost like lifting, but like it's like the same way when you lift, your bicep becomes bigger. Learning is the same thing within your brain. Like you understand like neuroplasticity and how it rewires your brain and helps you grow your brain, make your brain stronger. And that whole process, it's like, the more you think about something, the more you do something, the easier that thought process and the more that whole thing becomes. And it's like we do start to like feed what's easy, feed what's the easy way out. And it's like, you could just like keep chasing what is the difficult train of thought and things that make you uncomfortable. I think a lot of times that's where people will like, they'll be uncomfortable and what's in their brain, and then they'll just like, I'll pick up their phone. And it's like,
there's habits we have to ease ourselves of.
I think that's something I've tried to be a little bit better about, is like when I'm uncomfortable with my train of thought, is like, okay, leaving my phone right there and seeing this train of thought out. It's like,
don't try to escape.
Yeah.
People will escape it. Like, this is getting hard. I'm going to escape.
Yeah. I'm still nowhere near good at it. Like I still pick up my phone way too much, especially when it is a train of thought I really don't want to follow. But I think that's something that's like.
But you're learning.
Yeah.
But you're learning.
Yeah.
By doing that, like you're interesting. I like that idea.
Because it's so easy now, like with the phone, to just pick it up and just be distracted and just go message someone. Now you've got your phone buzzing because this person's messaging you back and forth. Now you can go scroll on Instagram, go on YouTube, watch a video. Tell yourself you're learning something. Tell yourself that you're achieving something by watching this video that you it's kind of interesting, but what value
Yeah.
is it really having in your life? You know, and really and truly, you could just be sat there thinking about whatever it is that's causing you that discomfort in your life, and
Mm-hmm.
temporary discomfort for something that might be better for you and everyone around you in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something
I like that idea. I like that idea. I think that's probably why we feel as when you look at the statistics, people are learning less today than ever before. Their mental ability is lower in general, but it's probably that idea that because we're more selfish and self-absorbed,
Mhm.
that when we feel discomforted, we escape, we stop doing it. Well, that means we're stopping learning. Basically, we're stopping some form of something's not what I want it to be, so I'm just going to escape so I don't have to think about it,
Mhm.
or adapt to it, or not adapt to it, or whatever, or overcome it. Whatever the word is you would use there, you just basically skip it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like it's an interesting one.
Life is hard. You realize that, right?
Yeah, but I think I don't know. I don't know if spoke to you about this, but it's like sometimes you get grateful for the fact of how hard life is, because for a lot of beings,
Mm-hmm.
life isn't that hard because they don't have the capacity to realize how hard it is. So it's like they don't have the same cognitive functions, they
Yeah,
don't have the same
yeah,
EQ, IQ.
yeah.
They don't have the same. Think about how like when you feel really. Think about depression. Like think about depression and how bad a really bad depression
Mm-hmm.
to the point of like a suicidal thought, to the point of like, man, you don't see like I don't know, like you don't see a lot of animals commit suicide because they don't have the same emotional capacity to even be that depressed. Like that's the thing is like I try and like remind myself sometimes, like when I feel bad about myself, like or feel bad about things, just remind myself, man, it's awesome that I can feel this crappy. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. The problem is though that I like that idea, but then again, at the same time, you don't know what it's like in their head. Remember those people you said that don't have to maybe have a hard life?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in their head though? Is their hard life different than yours?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are they suffering inside differently than you would? In other words, somehow it's still really that hard for them,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like they're blowing off their whole life, but something inside of them is just as hard as what you're doing to them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm just saying that because I think sometimes
Yeah.
people keep so much inside, you have no clue what's going on.
Yeah. That's definitely true. I've definitely done that at points.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting. I don't know why we do that though.
So, have you
Because
ever suffered depression?
yeah, I suffered on and off with depression from when I was 6 to when I
Yeah.
was 18.
When I had my
Yes.
heart attack, when you're under for that many hours, and they're fixing my heart. When you come out, the anesthesia will never wear off. I mean, it always affects you then. So right after that, I still have it sometimes today. It's still not gone. I really would have bouts of depression. It would be like I would be fine going on, and then all of a sudden it would be just like a switch got turned, and I would feel so depressed, so something. I never felt this. I didn't even know it was called. I mean, I would label it depression today, but I didn't even know that's what it was. But I would completely change like myself. I would be not my wife. What's the matter? Like people around me could tell that something was like totally different,
Yeah.
like wrong. And it's so weird when you think about depression, but it's you can't you can't change it. It's like depression is not necessarily a mental issue as much. Like I couldn't even think myself out of it. You had to almost just let it kind of evolve and go away. I don't know what the word is even for it, but it wasn't something, and you can't fix it. Like people can't say, "Oh, just get over it.
Yeah.
Just get over being depressed." Well, that actually makes it worse if you keep telling me that. So stop.
Right. Yeah.
It's better just don't talk to me.
Right.
Like let me kind of evolve back out of it.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was weird though.
Yeah.
Yeah, to feel that way, to feel all of a sudden that way. It was like so scary, almost even.
Yeah. I had several fights with it, but like now it's at the point where like I refuse to. I had battles with like suicidal thoughts and whatnot, and it got to my worst when I was in my freshman year of college, and then after that, I just kind of told my like
You
I
learn
had
to cope with that the feeling of when it starts to happen or something. Or
yeah.
whatever.
I mean, for me, it was more just like I made a promise to my best friend, and I was like, okay, now it's like yeah, you can feel depressed, but you're never going to act on it. So get
Right.
over. So,
So
and it
you're
was like,
yeah.
now it was like, it got to a point where it was like, okay, now it's going to be, yeah, get over yourself. But it's
But
like,
you can be depressed, but you know what it is, and you can work your way out of it without going down a deeper path.
yeah,
But you still kind of realize you are depressed at times.
yeah. I mean, like I had a day just literally this week. I was only depressed for that one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of just, like you said,
Yeah.
let it engulf me. And normally it wouldn't even last for a day. Normally it's like an hour or two.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just kind of let it, like you said, let it engulf you for a bit. And it's like, I think people will like often like on the basketball team, like we have practice and guys are telling me like, oh, like, you know, we need you to be energetic in this. I'm like, I'm sorry, like I don't have the energy to give you.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry, like I cannot give you this right now.
Yeah. But you've learned how to work through it too. That's the idea. You've
Right.
overcome the depression to some extent. You still have it, but you know now how to bring yourself out of it,
Right.
if you want to call it that. Yeah.
Right.
Triggers, whatever those words are you use now to help you.
Yeah. I think it's just, like you said, working your way through it. Letting it engulf you, but not in the way, like the way I used to let it engulf me was like letting that spiral
Was
just
a
get
really
bigger.
dark, yeah, you'd go to the really, yeah.
It would just
I call that the really dark place, yeah, like really, really dark, yeah.
Just like the spiral gets bigger and
Yeah,
bigger and
yeah.
bigger. Whereas now what I do is I let it spiral, but it's just like that's the spiral just of it. Like I let it stay like it's the same. Instead of letting it get bigger, it's like it's spiraling the same, and eventually it just will die.
Or kind of like quicksand, you know.
Right.
You're relaxing enough that you're not sinking all the way in, but you're kind of then able to get out of it.
Right. Exactly. Just like almost exactly like that. You know, you're relaxed enough to where
you come out of the quicksand instead of sink all the way down. Yeah,
right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's a perfect metaphor, but it's like I don't know. There's a lot of things around that. I've never heard it described that way actually, but that's almost exactly what it is. It's like letting it come, but then not letting it. Yeah,
because you can't stop it.
Yeah,
there's no way to stop depression. I don't think the way I was having it, I couldn't stop it because I didn't even know it was going to happen. It was like just it would engulf you and then it would be there.
Yeah,
so it's not like you could. Like if I get migraines sometimes. I don't know if you have migraines, but I can tell when they're coming. I get these little dots in my eyes, and I can feel a little funny, so I know it's coming.
Right.
So I can do something ahead of time to stop it. But depression, just like kind of like all of a sudden, it's just like,
yeah,
and you're there.
Right. It literally happens in a minute, and then within a minute, you're just now like the world feels heavier.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, great. And it's like, you just gotta go deal with that. It's like, okay, great. I don't know. I kind of got. I think part of it is also humor, being able to joke about it, being like. I think people say it's not healthy, but I think it's the best thing to do.
Well, I'm just honest with like if I'm home with my wife or somebody, I just say, hey, you got to leave me alone for a minute because I really feeling not well. I feel kind of one of those episodes. You know, I just tell them I feel depressed right now, and I don't know why, but I need a few minutes to just kind of deal with it.
Yeah. I think something that's really important is again having those people around you that are willing to hear that, because some people just like, you know, like there's times where I've had that conversation where I've told someone like, hey, look, I'm depressed, I need you to leave me alone for a minute, and then that's when they'll try and like help me more, and I'm like, all right, no, look, I told you like I needed a second, like
they don't understand it. See that, my daughter has depression. She always has in high school, but I didn't really understand it that much until I started having it. I was like, oh my gosh, the times I told her just let's just get over it. Just you know, that was the worst thing to say to somebody in depression. Just get over it. It's like
I don't know. It's like because I feel like that just get over it message is almost like it's a perfect message when it's coming from yourself.
Yeah.
But it's the worst thing to hear when it's coming from someone else.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, well, you caused it and just get over it. Like, stop doing it.
Right.
Why can't you? I can. You can't. So just get over it. You know, like it's almost a negative thing they're saying. Like,
it's like very condescending. Very just like,
are you that much of an idiot? Just get over it. You know, it's a negative thing when someone else tells you.
Whereas like when you have that confidence, and you know you have put the work in for that confidence that you've built over time, and you tell yourself just get over it, then you have the stack of proof that tells you that you know you've got over it before. You can do this. You know, when you have all this evidence kind of backing up that statement of you can get over it, now do it. Then that's probably exactly what you need. But when it's just someone from the outside who you don't like, even if it's a mother, father, sister, brother, whatever, someone who loves you, it's not you.
No, it's not.
It's not
Yeah.
followed by that.
Yep.
By
Yep.
that, you know, that.
Yep. Yep.
It's not accompanied with the proof you can do it. But
All right. I think you got to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna head out. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
For my listeners, remember your growth is limited when you're alone. So feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter at @the_growth_net. We're also on TikTok at the Growth Network Podcast. I hope to hear your thoughts and feedback soon. Until next time, grow together.